Hi, Marcelo here. I'm a student doing a master degree in innovation and sustainability. And today I have the pleasure to interview Nora from Switzerland. Nora, can you share a bit with us about who you are and your passion and maybe your connection with sustainability and leadership? In a few
Sure.
seconds.
Thank you, Marcelo. Yes, I'm Nora from Switzerland. I'm currently 27. This may change at whatever point you watch this video. And I have been active in trying to make my best contribution to the world that I wish to see ever since I was 15 or 16, when I awoke a bit in shock at the state of the world and different things that were happening around it in terms of violence, genocides, ecocides, so the destruction of the planet, and so on and so forth. And my first love or level of engagement was in youth citizenship, youth activation. I was very active with the European Youth Parliament, for example. And in 2017, I co-founded an organization called Collaboratio Helvetica. And we are a platform to catalyze change on the systemic level towards the Agenda 2030 in Switzerland. So we convene different stakeholders around SDGs, around complex challenges. We do capacity building programs, and we try to enable and inspire as many people as possible with our knowledge and resources.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for sharing. So the purpose of this interview is to get a story from you on responsible leadership, and so to help our audience reflect on what is responsible leadership actually, and which are the competencies needed to become a responsible leader. And I know that you have a professional story to share with us today. So you have the floor.
Thank you. Yes, I thought maybe to kind of address this topic from the side of, on the one hand side, the systemic aspect of it. So what is happening on a more global, on a more meta level, and then what this means for the individual. So that's what I'll try to do with this specific example. So one of the basic premises upon which Collaboratio Helvetica was built was the realization that the challenges that we're facing, as contained in, for example, the Agenda 2030, are extremely complex, right? Some people would call them wicked problems, complex problems, systemic challenges, and they're really issues where there's not one single straightforward answer. And there's not just, if one actor would only do this, it would solve everything. And there's a high amount of different perspectives on the topic. Not only what caused the topic, but also what could we do about it? What is the solution? Typically very controversial, things that may kind of polarize also debates in societies. So it became clear to us that if we want to address these topics, we cannot go about it in the, I will call it now, old-fashioned linear way of assuming that I may found a project that will solve poverty across the globe, right? But rather that we need to learn to collaborate across sectors. So really that we need to be able to bring together different stakeholders and address this topic together. So actually look at it from a systemic point of view, which is a new or slightly different way of thinking than the way we are used to, and really try to understand not just what are the symptoms and how do we address them, but what are the root causes? So what is making the situation the way it is, and how are we all contributing to it? And of course, everybody understands that when we collaborate across sectors, there's vested interests, there's different priorities, there are different languages, there's a whole bunch of different things that constitute obstacles to fruitful collaboration and make it difficult to get around the table and find a solution or many solutions together. However, in this story, I would like to focus on the fact that what we notice is that even when we do share the same goal, so there's no conflicting interest, we both want to end racism, we both want to contribute to more sustainability in business, we both want to bring more gender diversity to the private sector, whatever it is, we may still compete, right? So two organizations that share the same goal are literally on the same team, if you think about it from a sports metaphor point of view, shooting at the same goal, race against each other for the ball, right? And why is that? And how come this happens? So it's been now a bit more than 3 years that we've been on this learning journey, looking at this topic, and very like often just being again surprised at how deeply ingrained these patterns of competition are in just what we've been taught, right? It's what we've been taught in school, it's what we've been taught in sports. There's one winner, right? You're graded on your own performance, not on the group performance, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of things, a lot of pressures around who we are as people, that makes us think that I need to be the one to end poverty, to, you know what I mean, contribute majorly to this. And I, as an individual, will be recognized with an award, with whatever it is. And this is, interestingly enough, something that's present on a very subconscious level. So even though watching this, you may think, oh, I'm not like this, you know, I'm not here for my own sake. It actually plays into our subconscious motivation and our subconscious way to navigate a certain field. It's not something that we're necessarily aware of. And it really takes a conscious work to keep ourselves in check when it comes to that, to really watch ourselves. And there's, of course, the systemic dimension. So on the level of the system, a few things that I can mention that are fairly simple is, for example, the way that funding is currently structured. So if you're two NGOs or two projects that are both trying to improve, for example, the situation of homelessness in one specific city, currently the incentive structure is to compete, because at the end of the day, these two projects will compete for funding, right? They will both put in an application in for a certain foundation or for maybe the city to give them money, and the foundation or the city is likely to choose, right? I prefer this one, I prefer the other one. And this incentive structure means that even if we like each other, even if we think each other's projects are interesting, we're not so encouraged to actually share knowledge, to actually, share ideas and develop things together, because we are afraid for our own survival. So there's a systemic dimension, and as you can already tell, there's an individual dimension. So I can maybe not change the system today. We're working on it, but I can maybe not change the system today of how this funding system works, but I can reflect right now in the way that I'm interacting in my city or with maybe this other person from this other project. Am I coming from my own fear of not surviving, right? Am I coming from a place of lack, of scarcity, of competition? Or am I looking for the highest potential here? Am I seeing that this other person is on my team in this case? We're shooting towards the same goal. And am I looking for what's between us, right? Where is that element of magic that can just happen if we choose to collaborate? So that as one example. But really what we set out to do with Collaboratio Helvetica is to not only encourage many people to have this reflection and to go through this change process on an individual level, because it does require a mindset shift, but also to build a new commons. So what this means is that in a situation where everything is, like I said, typically setting us up to compete and to go against each other, we try to build, let's say, call it a bubble, a platform, a space where different rules apply, where there's actually an incentive to collaborate, where actually there are resources available, and we try to change the paradigm of how we operate. So we try to all contribute to the future that we want to see for Switzerland and in the world from our own place, but for the sake of the whole. So what this may look like is that even though I finished my project and I don't have any more money, I still invest time to write a nice report or to write a really interesting story about what I learned from doing this process, so that my project was not just a standalone, one-off thing that I can be proud of and put on my CV, but I leave something for the next person who may do the next project on this topic. So that can be one example. Another one can be if I try to look at the way that, again, we fund certain things, maybe I can include in my funding proposal money for the whole, right? So maybe I can include a little percentage or a little contribution that will go to a pot for other things that are not yet funded by the system. Or if I'm really successful and I've benefited from this commons, right, from this common pot of resources, I can give back. I can pay it forward for the next generation of change makers that will come. And this really requires a mindset shift again, right? So this is what we're trying to build. And now bringing it back to you, to me, to individuals, it requires us to always check ourselves. to always think, where am I coming from with this? And when there's so much scarcity and there's so many incentives to compete, it can be difficult to remain in that clarity that we're on the same team and I'm here to do what's best for the whole, not just for me, not just for my project. I'm here to do what's best for the whole.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very inspiring story and giving so many details on what is possible to do. I had an idea that usually when we think about change and innovation, we relate it to products directly, like, oh, innovation in a new product, or we did this modification, this feature. And what I understood from your story is that we can also have a lot of change and innovation also in the process and even on the way we collaborate, right? And so which kind of tools or methods do you use to help people shifting their ways of collaborating?
That's a great clarifying question. Thank you. So maybe just to kind of respond to that, like there's really a difference between what we on the narrow kind of spectrum define as being innovative and what we focus on, which is called social innovation. And our point of view is that supposedly we have all the solutions, we have the technology, we have the things that we need. And the real question is, why are we not changing them, right? Why are we not shifting? And at the end of the day, almost all the issues that we're facing are social issues, are human issues. The real question is, why as people are we not changing this on an individual level and on the way the system works? So that's why our focus is really social innovation. So I'm not saying the technological and product-based innovation is not important, just to say that we tend to overemphasize this and miss out on everything that's happening in the social dimension. So indeed, it's very much about changing a process, changing how we think, how we act. And some tools that we use, I mean, we're working a lot with, for example, Interviewee as a method that I recommend to everybody to check out. There's also a free online course every year on it, and it really encourages you to reflect on a deep level. So it's based entirely on this supposition that we need to let go of our judgments, we need to let go of our cynicism, and then we need to let go of our fear to really open ourselves up to the new. So that's basically what I will try to identify. So when somebody, for example, comes to me and wants to collaborate or wants to do something, or is even challenging me from a point of view that I really don't understand, like is very much, say, anti-gender equality, or thinks there's no problem when it comes to gender, like to really do the personal effort of trying to, okay, let's just approach this person with curiosity. So can I be curious instead of being judgmental? Because if I'm judgmental, I've already closed myself to whatever this person is saying. And then can I actually have compassion? So even if on a rational level, we're also trained to do that. Like we're trained that there's a right and a wrong, and that we have to debate each other. And yes, there are facts and so on. And sometimes it's much more about understanding each other on an emotional level. So actually understanding, where is that person coming from? Why does that person have this position is much more powerful than arguing, no, you're wrong because there is gender-based violence and whatever it is. So actually, can we find a place of understanding each other, of compassion? And then can I, instead of being afraid of what this might do to me, if I open myself up to this conversation, to this collaboration, have some courage and be in contact with, as I said it before, the highest future possibility. So what's the potential that's here? So it's basically shifting our entire way of operating from, we call it downloading. So me, my agenda, my judgments that I already have. If you talk to me and you say new things, I will not even hear them because I'm just focused on reconfirming what I already know and doing what I anyway wanted to do. And kind of shifting from that to, okay, let's be curious. Let's have some compassion. Let's be courageous, and tuning into a new future possibility that comes out of this conversation. So that's one example of a very individual practice. And we encourage this in all, like in any social innovation lab, in any stakeholder dialogue that we do, we will, on different levels and different ways, basically encourage everyone to develop that muscle. Just checking with myself, okay, which level am I listening from? Where am I acting from in this?
Thank you very much for sharing this approach of Interviewee. I might confess that I've tried to understand this theory sometimes, and sometimes it's a bit difficult to understand all the picture and also the different steps. So the way you framed it, really, right now, great, I understood how it is. Like,
That's great.
actually, it's simple. Is there other tools or theories that you would like to name very quickly, so we can just have a kind of a database?
Sure. So the core methods that Collaboratio Helvetica works with next to Interviewee is also art of hosting, which is a very beautiful open source, I would say, collection of methods to activate group intelligence. So that's more how to have really good conversations with big groups and actually find new insights. And then we work, when it comes to how to structure collaboration and approach it, we work with another beautiful open source resource called Sociocracy 3.0, which is an amazing resource for anyone that wants to, like structure the concrete way you work with each other. So, okay, what's our purpose here? What are we trying to do? What's my domain, my responsibility? What's your domain? How do we take decisions in a productive and an inclusive way, and so on? Very, very fantastic resource. And then the last one is social innovation labs. So that's kind of there's different theories, different schools of thoughts around this. We have some resources on our website regarding what we mean by it, but it's really a high level strategy on how to address a complex problem. And we could have a whole other interview on that. But yeah, that are some of the few. But for me, at the end of the day, if like you take just one thing from this conversation, it would be this phrase coined by Otto Scharmer from Interviewee, how to shift from the ego to the eco. So this for me is just a very powerful, quick reminder, right? So whenever I'm in a certain situation, I'm talking with a stakeholder, I'm trying to build a partnership, I'm launching a new project, I'm fundraising for a project, I'm taking on something new at work, whatever it is, to always ask myself the question, am I coming from my ego? Or am I thinking of what's the highest possibility? What's the greatest thing that can come for the collective, for the common good, and not just from me? So am I thinking of this from a perspective of the ecosystem? And we're not always going to succeed. Like, it's very difficult. There's a lot of things that draw us back into, the way we were just trained our entire life to think, and my survival and my title and my success and so on. So it's a learning journey, and I'm not, saying we should blame ourselves or judge ourselves if we don't succeed. It's just a learning process. But for me, it's definitely the way to go. So always check with ourselves. Am I really in service here of the highest possibility? Am I acting from ego or from eco?
Thank you very much for this main message. So final question, would you like to share with us a practice that you do maybe on a daily basis, weekly basis, or monthly basis that could help us going through this competence of change and innovation?
So the one that I just mentioned is definitely a good one. So this is something that I can ask myself in any conversation. So for example, if I'm going into a conversation with a potential partner in the government or with an important stakeholder in academia or in the private sector, whatever it may be, am I coming in actually closed-minded? So am I coming in with, my agenda, this is what I need from you, and I'm not interested in learning anything? Or am I coming in with an open mind and with a curiosity? So of course I have my intention. That's really important to have a clear intention. I hope that this will come out. I want it to go in this direction. This is what I want to propose. And I want to remain open to whatever may come from this conversation, because maybe there's a synergy that I haven't even seen. So I think this is also the beautiful thing to practice. It's like to begin to trust that if I'm open and if I just have faith in this, that I can be surprised, that things can actually go better than I anticipated, in the sense that realms of possibility open up that I hadn't even considered. Because if I only focus on what I can do, what I know should be done, I'm just in my movie. And the best thing that can happen is that I succeed in executing my movie to the end. And that's maybe very good already. And maybe there was so much more that we didn't even know was there. So that's something that's really good to kind of check every conversation, every day. And then more of a practice, something that's really helped me that I found very necessary, is to take a distance every once in a while. So to at least twice a year, if possible, go on a retreat, you know, take some time in silence, or just have a week of, you know, holidays where you don't close the, like, don't touch the computer, close all your electronics down, whatever it may be that works for you, that's accessible for you, just taking a bit of distance. Because even if I have the best intentions in the world and I have all these tools to check myself and to not be in my ego, it can still happen that I get so tunneled down in a project that I lose sight of the whole. And these moments of distance, of pausing, of reflecting, can be a safeguard against that. Can be a way to just, oh, okay, where am I? Am I really right now in service of what I want to be doing? Or did I just lose myself in something that didn't really make sense? Or was I close to burning out? Or am I creating damage actually because I'm angry and I'm not coming from a good place? So whatever it may be, but just like a distance that helps me reconsider my strategy, my approach, and my contribution.
Great. Thank you very much, Nora, for trusting us, firstly. And also, let's see what this interview will awake, which ideas and how it will awake the journey on responsible leadership of the people that were watching us. So once more, thank you, and it was a pleasure.
That's amazing. I wish you very much all the best with this journey. I think it's fantastic what you've launched here. And if anyone is interested in further learning opportunities on the methods that we mentioned or whatever it may be, feel free to reach out to us. We're always open to support. So thank you for this conversation and looking forward to the next steps.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.